Hey, good morning, everybody. So, being that we're a few days away from the midterm elections, as of recording this is November 2nd, the election's taking place at the federal level and state level on November 8th. I was thinking about something that for years had kind of bothered me, and recently I had an inverse perception occur to me. And the thing that bothered me was this. About, I don't know, 14 years ago, a friend of mine went and spent some time we were in South America, mostly Brazil. And we were talking with some people at the hostel that we were staying at, and we were the only Americans. Or, no, there was another American there. And when he was interacting with somebody at the bar downstairs one day, politics came up. I don't remember what specifically. And my friend and I were talking to somebody who was not an American, and she just had this glazed look in her, like, oh, the Americans are always talking politics. Like, more so than any other country or any other culture, the Americans always have to focus on politics. And for a while, that bothered me. Like, we were, focused on something that robbed us of some deeper, richer experience in life, some joy in life. And recently, I've come to reflect by nature of this channel on just what an American's roles are and how that might be unique or different contextually compared to any other society in present day or in history. And the change of perception that I had was it's not actually it's not a negative thing. It's not a curse. It is, however, a burden of responsibility because of the uniqueness of the position we find ourselves in the republic that is America, where by virtue of a democratic electorate process, we have a say and an obligation to have a say in who we choose to run the governance of our entities, whether it be from the local up to the federal level. And it made me think, well, uh, we have skin in the game, so to speak, and because of that, we find it almost inevitable to discuss political situations and political things, and to share our opinion because we've grown up in a society where that was expected as a necessary measure to thoughtfully, systematically, and carefully govern ourselves. And we should look at that as the blessing that it is, because of how rare it is. Throughout throughout societies and cultures in the world, where typically you have a ruling class, a maniacal, a monarchy. I don't know how to say that word. A monarchy established where you have a ruling of a class of elites that make the decisions, and they know better, they're smarter. Therefore, it isn't incumbent upon the lesser thans, the people that occupy a lower subsect of society. Like the caste system being a perfect in India, the caste system being a perfect example where you have a strata of society where people don't move up and down, and certain stratas within that society have different obligations. So where the majority of people don't have anything to say and shouldn't concern themselves with matters of the state or matters of governance, because somebody that's been placed in a higher position above them knows better, knows more, and therefore they're completely entrusted to make the decisions. Where the opposite is the case here, where the founding fathers recognized that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that a ruling class effectively cannot run a government of what they considered free people, based on inalienable rights. All people of society should be free. That's a discussion for another time. But given that basic tenet, that basic premise, those freemen have an obligation to have a say in how that ruling is done, because, in fact, they do know better. Because the individual knows what's best for them, they know what's best for their family, and by virtue of that, they need to keep their ear to the ground, so to speak, to make sure that those that are elected to deal with the day-to-day runnings of society don't lose sight of the goals and the methodologies that should be utilized to ensure that freedom or to even enhance the quality of life of that freedom. So, when I recognized that, I kind of took that as a point of pride rather than as a slight against American culture. So yeah, we are involved in politics because we have an obligation, and it's still like the Spider-Man quote: "With great power comes great responsibility." We have the individual freedoms and individual power that may be unsurpassed in society today. And with that, we have an obligation to stay involved. And one thing that's concerning over the last few years, and this will be my note to close on, is that there's been a delegation of responsibility to a ruling class, whether that be through the pandemic. We'll let the medical professionals make the decisions for our lives, or the political leaders to make the decisions on how we live our lives, whether that be at an individual daily level, like, oh, I'll let somebody else school my children and teach them these things. I'll let somebody else determine where my tax dollars go. I'll let somebody else make these decisions on what's good for my body, what's not good for my body. That's quite scary because it seems to be working counter to what the founding fathers outlined for us, which had been a pinnacle revelation of society at that point. It was where it's, well, no, every free man has the right to self-autonomy and self-determination and is capable of making those decisions. And every time we cede a little ground to a professional or an expert in that area, not by seeking advice or seeking counsel by somebody who might know more than us, that's wisdom, but rather by totally abdicating the responsibility in the decision-making process for how things happen, we're giving away some of that freedom and undermining the American experiment. So as we're going into the midterm elections, whatever your political persuasion may be on any given topic, just know that it is up to us individually to seek the truth, to form an opinion based on that truth, and to vote accordingly, to discuss amongst each other accordingly, to give money to some form or cause accordingly, to campaign, to do something that you feel is necessary because you have the power and therefore you have the obligation. So good luck with that in the coming days, and hopefully that's a message that sticks with you for longer than just the next election cycle, but is continuing in the back of your mind. Have a good day.